So, a little bit about Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a public land grant institution located in Southwest Virginia. We have an undergraduate enrollment of about 34,000 students. So, it's a really big and growing alumni base. And what's really fun about working at Virginia Tech right now is one of the mandates from our president about 24 months ago that President Sands said very publicly, hey, let's get to 22% alumni participation by 2022. Well, Virginia Tech was only at 10%, and now we're at 13%, but it's still a long way to go to 22. So we've been really trying to think about what are those new technologies and new options that let us reach alumni where they're at. One of the things we've noted, probably similar to many of those of you in higher ed, that over 50% of our alumni have graduated since the mid 1990s. So most of these people are not donors and have a different relationship with the university. So we're like, okay, let's try texting and see how can we engage our population. So one of the questions we've really had to ask ourselves in the last 18 months is, are we meeting donors and alumni with where they're at? And after some audits and looking at the stuff, the answer was really no. We were still using all those traditional channels and letting mail go first and phone follow up. And we really had to start asking ourselves, who is our target audience and what's the right channel for that generation, for that donor? So when we start thinking about our tactics, we're really integrating that audience in terms of their generation, the channels in which they consume that marketing, and overlaying that with their giving behavior. By having everybody in our organization really think about generation, marketing, consumption, and giving together, we've really moved the needle on those digital tactics, especially for our Gen X and millennial donors who are our biggest alumni base and also the ones we really want to be engaging. When we first started dipping into text messaging, we were really nervous that, are our donors going to respond? Are they going to hate it? And the answer was no. Mobile Cause was a great partner when we got started of helping us figure out how to tell that story first and then ease into that text messaging. A year later, we've used the SMS messaging thing for things like special event fundraising, for our art center, or for some of our different alumni groups. We've started doing opt-in messaging related to reunions so people can get that insider first registration early bird discount. Providing useful content back to our alums about, hey, here's the webinar for the state of the university. Here's a live webcam view. Let's have you join in. And the response has been really, really, really positive, and that's allowed us to start really upping the ante with those asks and making our alums feel comfortable that, you can interact with Virginia Tech through an SMS message. So one of the campaigns we really started going all in this year was around Giving Tuesday. And because there's so much going out there in the world, we're like, let's do something a little bit different to let our alums know that they can participate on Giving Tuesday. Virginia Tech had never really gone all in on Giving Tuesday. There was a little bit of hesitation. So we decided let's really go all in with this digital thing, integrating mobile and social media ads and letting those be the drivers, because that's where we knew our core audiences of the Gen X and millennials were at. And by doubling down on this, we're like, you know what, we really think this is the right strategy to meet people where they're at on a day where there's so much noise and clutter and every nonprofit trying to be out there. So one of the things we did were to integrate 3 text messages within this critical campaign. And we were a little nervous at first about sending 3 text messages with 3 asks in a 4-day window. But what we saw is that in this example, the content was unique. The content was very time specific. They understood the message they were getting and why they were getting it on the day that they were getting it. We saw through earlier learnings that if we offered an amount, we were more likely to get a gift from that alum. And in fact, the average gift was significantly higher than the offered amount. So if you see on our first message that first text really helped drive conversions. And that was one of our most successful messages, and we had about 40 gifts directly through text message just on that first one alone. At the end, we looked at this entire Giving Day campaign, and there were over 800 gifts. Virginia Tech had never seen a single window of giving be that successful when it was only a digital campaign. At the end of it, we saw that 60% of those 800 gifts came from mobile devices, and 200 of those gifts came directly from those text messages. When we looked at those who received a text message versus those who had not received a text message, that conversion was even higher and stronger, that text message influenced that donor to take action on another channel. And for us, that was a huge win because we were starting to meet the donors where they were at in a channel that they wanted to consume that content. For us, what was also really, really impressive is that most of those 200 gifts were from people who had never made a gift to Virginia Tech before. So double winning, we got a new donor, and now we know it's a channel that we can continue to reach them on. We took a lot of these learnings and said, you know what, let's integrate this text messaging ask into Giving Day. We felt really confident after a year of testing with different messages that our base was ready to get 3 text messages in an even shorter window. So we started with Giving Day this spring by sending out a hype message, just getting people excited. We realized we hadn't engaged them in a while, so we wanted to send them a fun video promoting Giving Day and getting them really excited. And then on that Giving Day in that 24-hour window, we wanted to provide a little bit different content than we had in other messages. Oftentimes it was university related. We know in Giving Day it's all about competition and colleges competing against other colleges for part of that challenge money. So in Giving Day, we really, decided to say, let's go with that college first message. Even when we saw that 3% opt-out rate, it didn't scare us because we know for some of our baby boomers and silent generation, it had been a long time since we had engaged them, and we had also gone through a new data cleanse. So we had a lot more phone numbers to work with. But when we looked at our core audiences of those Millennial and Gen X, they still were under that 1 to 2% threshold when it came to sending multiple messages. What we found even more exciting is that when we sent that second message on the very last day for Giving Day, that competition, that sense of urgency and letting everyone know that their gift mattered, that opt-out rate was even under 2% at that third message. So we were really happy that our alumni were still consuming content that was urgent, there was value added, and it was fun. They were being part of that Giving Day hype. When we were in Giving Day, we had to be really cognizant about time zones. Virginia Tech alums are primarily on the East Coast, but we have a very large contingency out on the West Coast. So we were being really mindful of when is someone in California going to receive this message and will it annoy them? So that was another really key part of Giving Day and lessons that we had learned. And then kind of wrapping it up of, what have we learned over the past year? For us, SMS is just as important a solicitation channel and an engagement tool as your phone or your emails or your direct mail plan. That now we really start at the onset of, okay, how are we using all of these channels together to really amplify the message and meet our alumni where they're at? Secondly, having those really specific urgent call to actions are always yielding more gifts for us. We know that if we put an offer amount in there or a deadline, we're going to see a higher average gift and a higher response and a higher conversion for all of those messages than if we were just sending something vague. And the other learning for us is text messaging will continue to be an important part of our work, but we need to have that appropriate generational message that we know our baby boomers and our silent generation alums need a little bit different message, and that message could be longer. But when we come to our Gen X and our millennials, they need something a little bit more informal, something snappy, something that's really going to motivate them to act right now because they're busy and they might have 40 other messages on their phone. Giving them that short, snappy content will help them continue to have value with Virginia Tech. And the other thing we really look at with that generational messaging is we don't want to undershoot ourselves if we're asking for a gift. So for our younger alums, we'll put a different ask amount in there than we will with our older alums so that we're not leaving any dollar or any donor on the table. And for us, we'll continue to put all these things together and continue to iterate and make text messaging a great part of our annual giving strategy as we try to get to 22% alumni participation.